All right, welcome, Thirsty Pups here, Casey and Shay. We're at the beautiful Percula here at Park Tavern. We're getting ready for big game one tomorrow at 2:30, Timberwolves and the Suns. Let's get the thank yous out of the way right away, Shay,
Let's get
right?
some thank yous.
Okay, so we're at the Wolves Den. This is kind of our home spot for Timberwolves road games, but we will be here tomorrow at 2:30. We want to thank first Park Tavern, Christian, Zach, Phil, managers here, and their wonderful staff. We have a couple of them over here watching us live right now, so a lot of pressure put it on us. Want to thank Capital Beverage Sales. Want to also thank Matt and Nick at Stilly. And then also we have to thank Abby at Faded and Elegant in the West End, where you can see we got our beautiful haircuts, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So Shay, you want to jump right into it?
Yeah, so we're going to go a little bit over what we like and dislike about the matchup with the Suns. Then we're going to go over some X factors I think that are going to be the key to the series. And then we'll talk a little bit about the watch party coming up tomorrow, as well as game two, what we have planned, or a little sneak preview for that. So
absolutely. I think so. Let's jump right into it, Shay. So the first talking point of today will be the good and bad of the matchup with the Suns. I'll let you go first. Give me your kind of breakdown of what's good and what you're looking forward to in the matchup, and what maybe some of the Wolves fans are worried about going into the matchup.
Yeah, so I think to start off on a positive note, I think the Timberwolves are a much deeper team. We have a lot of bench depth. I think 1 through 5, even our 4 and 5 with our starters, are better players than what the Suns have to offer. I think they have a lot of firepower up front with their 3 big, between Booker, KD, as well as Beal. But after that, it's Grayson Allen, not a whole lot of scoring coming from them. So I think our depth and our size going into this series, if this goes past 4 games into 5, 6, 7 games, the Wolves should be able to punish the Suns both in the paint and with our depth, keeping guys fresh going through this series. So I mean, what's a better takeaway for you on a positive note for the Wolves?
Yeah, I think on the good side of things, I think the main things that I'm looking at is, one, I think that Finch did show kind of all of his cards, right? Typically, if you want to deep dive into NBA basketball, when Western Conference teams are playing other Western Conference teams and they're high-end teams or playoff-type teams, you're not going to always show your adjustments and your tweaks. Yeah. So I think that that's something, and to quote our guy Jimmy Peterson, the legend of St. Louis Park, he mentioned earlier in a podcast that he was at practice the last couple of days. He's noticed some tweaks and adjustments. He's excited about them. He just couldn't talk about them, so that's understandable. So I think that that's a big point. I think it's also a couple other things that, on the good side, is that it's very doubtful, to me at least, that the Suns are going to shoot 48% from 3, which they did in the 3 games that we played against them. We just played too good of defense. They're not going to get that many open threes, and they're not going to hit that many open threes. And then lastly, the other one is I just put a lot of doubt in Bradley Beal. I don't think Bradley Beal is going to go 6 for 6 from 3 like he did on Sunday.
He's been out for a lot of the season.
Exactly.
It's hard to be consistent.
He's a good player. I just don't think he's going to go off like he has. So, Booker, Durant's going to score, but Bradley Beal, if we can keep him and Grayson Allen down, I think the Wolves will be just fine.
Could be an X factor.
Those are kind of my good points. What are some of the things that worry you right now?
So I like that you say, kind of let Finch cook, but maybe something that I'm worried about with the Suns is they're so good at ISO scoring that when it comes to playoffs, if you have sticky ball movement and you're not getting it to your guys, they have 3 guys that no matter what, you double them, you triple them, they can get buckets. So if those guys get going, it can be a scary series against the Suns. I think that's maybe why we hope for some other teams is coming into the playoffs, the star power that they have between those 3 ISO players. But I think we can mix some lineups up where we can cover all 3 with some good defenders to take away some of the ISO ball. Yep. And then on top of that, when you are doubling guys that are buckets like that, you're going to give up a lot of open jump shots just naturally to their role players. So I think if we can limit their open jump shots off the ISO defense.
Make Royce O'Neal beat you, right?
Make someone else on the team on the Suns beat you and really just take those 3 away. I think not only would that make this series go into our favor if we go into length, but to take those 3 stars out of the game and make the Suns beat you, that's where the Wolves' depth comes into play where, you take our stars out, we take your stars out, we still have the better team, and maybe you let Finch cook with some new strategies that the Suns haven't seen yet, and maybe that's where we see some advantages on the Wolves' side, even though it can be scary going into a matchup like this with 3 ISO scorers at all 3 levels.
Well, you got 2 first ballot Hall of Famers, and if Beal gets some postseason success towards the end of his career,
then he's a prolific scorer himself. So They got a lot of firepower. If we can limit that and get to their open shots and contest, I think it's a good thing for us.
I mean, to me, the bad of the matchup, and I think if people know me well enough, they know that I'm pretty much a altruistic optimist.
Super positive.
Yeah, I'm a super positive. Chili con queso is pretty positive. But I will say this, 3 ugly losses, yes, all against the Suns, 2 on the road, 1 at home. 2 of those losses have been on back-to-backs for the Wolves, not for the Suns. We're not giving excuses. It's just the way that the NBA season works, right? I think the recency bias is the biggest thing that people are worried about because we just saw them get beat on Sunday, and now we have to turn around and play them on Saturday. Yeah. Everybody's a little on edge, a little on tilt because the Suns played so well and jumped out to, what was it, like a 13-2 run or whatever to start the game, right?
We're down 20.
And the biggest thing I think that you'll notice, and it has to end right away in game 1, and it was a little bit of a trend when Cat's out, and it's not necessarily due to Cat, but it was a little bit more of a trend towards the end of the season, is the slow starts in the first quarter. All three games against the Suns, we had ugly starts in the first quarter.
Right.
The last game that we had a watch party at, I think we spotted the Suns 15 points. It was 15-0 before we even scored a bucket, right? So the big thing for the Wolves will be is, can we get out to a decent start? Can we match physicality? Can we be the one that dictates physicality? And then can we also add some fouls on top of the Suns and get some of their guys in foul trouble?
Right.
And then I think, moving on before our second point, I think you wanted to mention Abby once again at Faded and Elegant at West End.
Before we get into our X Factors, if you guys check out, we'll put the link in our bio. We have 15% off if you mention Thirsty Pups. She's over in West End.
Yeah. Right by Punch.
Right by Punch Bowl Social. She's close by the Park Tab. So if you're looking to get a haircut, your boyfriend, yourself, your brother, send them over there. A couple other Thirsty Pups members as well have gotten their haircuts there. So we did as well. So we figured, what a great partner for the Thirsty Pups.
She kept some of my hair. Thankfully, she kept some of She left some of Queso's hair for today. That was nice.
But she just cares that we're looking good for the Wolves games. Win or lose, we look good. So go ahead and stop over there. But
mention Thirsty Pups.
Yeah, mention Thirsty Pups. Like we said, we'll put the link in the comments. You guys can go and book with Abby. But I think if we get into X Factors, my biggest X Factor this series is going to be Rudy Gobert.
Okay.
And looking at some of the stats before the game, and he hasn't played the whole game because they've been blowouts, so I can not tell the whole story, but when you watch the game, Rudy needs to dominate the boards. Where the last 2 games, he's had 8 rebounds and 6 rebounds.
Right.
And with our size advantage, Rudy's got to dominate the boards both offensively, causing a lot of stress for them to stay back and not get into transition, as well as anything that's a miss, Rudy's got to clean that glass up. So if Rudy can take advantage of cleaning the boards up and dominating the inside of the paint on a smaller team, plus getting Nurkic into foul trouble, putting some pressure on him like you were talking about around the rim, I think because of the ISO scores, it can be easy for Rudy not to have an impact when they're not getting to the basket. Because a lot of them score from the mid-range and out to get a lot of their baskets. So it can take Rudy completely out of the series. But if he can attack the O boards, get some fouls on Nurkic to really make them downsize, and then you look at Cat, Naz, and Rudy all getting post touches, I think that could really flip the series for us from a physical standpoint.
Our size should be an advantage for us in this series.
Size should be an advantage.
But it also could be a disadvantage depending on who we're having to guard on the other side on offense, right?
But if we can clean those boards up and get some get some fouls on them, get the whole boards, I think that will really even the series up based on our size and taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden Bol or Eubanks had to be their primary defenders on guys like Cat and Naz,
should eat them up.
Then we should eat them up inside. That opens up driving lanes. That opens up cutting lanes.
Open threes.
So I think that'll be a huge key to this series, an X factor, as we say.
Okay.
To this series moving forward.
Yeah, so we're talking X factors from the starting lineup, and then I'm going to pass it back to Shay for an X factor on the bench. I chose Cat. I think it's kind of an obvious one. I think a lot of, whether you're a Wolves or Cat fan or a Cat hater, I think this is the time that Cat obviously can try to come through and show up. Yeah. This is a potentially legacy series.
We hope he purrs this
Exactly. I'm a Cat fan. We're both Thirsty Pups are Cat fans. We're fans of everybody.
Right.
Even though we're called the Thirsty Pups, we still love Cat, right?
Right.
But I do think it's a potential legacy series for him, meaning that, if he can have a good series, he doesn't need to score 35 a game, but if he can have a good, efficient series, and he can help us get a win, He'll be knocking out, like we said, 2, potentially 3 Hall of Famers, and now a matchup that Vegas thinks that we're the underdog.
Right.
And that's going to go a long ways for Cat. I also think that where Cat can help is he can punish the smaller defenders inside, right? Whether that's Grayson Allen or whoever else. Hopefully get to the foul line, also score points, and then now they need to make adjustments quicker and bring in, take out offense for defense.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I think with Cat will be is if he's hitting threes, that's going to open up the Ants' driving lane. So if it's getting swung to him quick and then he can hit those shots.
It will take some of the relief off those double teams to have your second go-to really create some buckets. They can't just focus in on building the wall on Ants.
Exactly.
So
with that said, Shay, I guess who's your kind of X factor off the bench for the Wolves?
Yeah, it's funny. We've kind of been sticking to the Wolves bigs. My X factor, honestly, talking a little bit about Cat scoring, is when Naz Reid comes off the bench, if he can hit a couple threes and he mix it up in the paint, to take that stress off of our guards to score on this team, which they're going to be able to throw a lot of different guards at you guarding. But if our bigs can make it very difficult for them. So if Naz comes in and he has some Naz Reid games, as they would call it, I think the only other person to have a Naz Reid game was Nickeil Alexander-Walker against the Clippers. And it's just crazy that the Wolves are the only team that have players that can have Naz Reid games. It just shows our depth. But at the same time, if he can space the floor a little bit, open up the lanes, and he's so decisive on whether it's a rip through and a dribble, get into the basket, a shot or a swing, or a dribble handoff. The way that he can move the ball really opens up the offense for the Wolves.
Keeps it free flowing.
Keeps it free flowing. He's decisive. He gets it going. So if Naz Reid plays like Naz Reid, the 6th man of the year, I think there's no way that Phoenix can keep pace with someone like a 6th man of the year coming off the bench for you and taking care of business.
And that plays into a little bit what I'm saying too. You picked Naz, I picked Na, which is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think what's key in all of this is that it's everybody always talks about when you play Denver, how do you win the non-joker moments, right? The minutes. So for me, it's also when Durant goes to the bench, can you push that lead? And can the guys that you're bringing in, like if you're resting Jaden, if you're resting Ant, can you push that lead? So for me, like I said, is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think a couple things. One is if the rotation gets thinned down and they shorten the rotation, which tends to happen in playoffs, there's a very good chance that Nickeil will be the first guy or second guy off the bench, maybe after Naz, but he's going to be the backup point guard. So now we're going to have a taller, more length point guard. We're going to have a guy that can guard Durant, Beal, or Booker, or Grayson Allen, right? And at the same time, the other stat that's really interesting, this isn't 100% because I've heard that it might be off by a little bit, but at the end of the day, Booker was held to 1 for 17 by Nickeil over the last 2 years. So granted, it's a small sample size. It's 3 games this year and maybe only 1 last year. But he plays excellent defense on Booker because he's quick, but he still has length. And then the other point I think is that, like I said, is can he also be a scoring boost on offense, hit those corner threes, drive the basket, get to the free throw line. I think that Naz and Na are going to be the 2 biggest guys off the bench, whereas Slow-Mo is still going to play a part, and he's going to be great. But as far as an offensive infusion and then obviously a defensive lockdown, it's going to come with Alexander-Walker, right?
And Na's been great for us this whole season. He's really become a more consistent contributor game after game after game. He's efficient on the offensive end. So if he can continue to do those things and be a problem on the defense, that just speaks trouble for Phoenix. So we're looking forward to this game 1 at Park Tav. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on in Park Tav? Do we got giveaways, drink specials? Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
We got it all. So 2:30 start. Get here early. Our good friend Christian, the manager, said he will have some seats basically reserved off, but we can't promise everybody. So get here early, get fired up, get tuned up. Game starts at 2:30. We're going to be, once again, we'll be doing trivia at the end of the first quarter, halftime, third quarter for gift cards. We'll be doing drink specials on McUltra, drink specials on Stilly as well. Might have some Stilly swag to give out as well, whether it be hats or koozies. And then, on top of that, besides having a blast at Park Tav like we do, we also want to introduce that we're going to be doing Game 2 at the Hilton Garden Inn. For some of you, you came to the first one, which was on a Sunday night. we'll be doing that at the Hilton Garden Inn. We'll give you more details come Sunday morning, but we want to just let you know that we will be there for Game 2. And then this is a rarity for us to be at the Park Tab, Percola on a home game. So we'll be back here, plan to be back here Game 3 and 4, ready for Game 4 to be a sweep win, right?
Yeah.
And then also we have to one more time just say thank you to Abby at Faded and Elegant once again. And like we said, if you mention Thirsty Pups and you set up a haircut with her, 15% off. We'll give you all the details in the comments. Anything else, Jay?
No, I think that's it. I think we're excited for this series. We're excited to get the watch party started and have a fun Wolves community moving forward here. I think we've done a good job over the season bringing a lot of people together, so we look forward to seeing everyone out here.
Yeah.
Having some drinks, having some good food, and hopefully we see this Wolves team fight and claw and win this series for us and
Just
move
keep
on to
moving
the
forward.
second round to Denver. So
Right. With that, Casey, Shay, Thirsty Pups, see you tomorrow, and thank you.